There are some complicated dynamics here because, of course, Teamsters, as you said, has not made an endorsement at the top level, but it has been pointed out that local chapters of Teamsters and individual Teamsters have perhaps indicated their own support for either Vice President Harris or former President Trump in one way or another. But moving away from the political implications, I want to get to the consumer implications, that $500 million to $5 billion a day impact. Those are big numbers, but what does it mean for everyday Americans, especially those of us who live on the East Coast and depend on the goods, perishable and not, that come through our ports? How fast will we see the effects of this? I know you said that there was some stockpiling that happened, so it sounds like there could be a bit of a delay. It won't be an immediate effect, but take us through. What will it look like at the grocery store? What will it look like at Target if this continues for a week, two, or three?
Well, thanks to all the experience of the pandemic, that impact will be minimized. First of all, on critical things such as pharmaceuticals, much of those travel by air, so they won't be directly impacted. Uh, for non-perishable goods, that's where a lot of stockpiling has taken place, so that may last for several weeks at least. Uh, but when it comes to perishable things like bananas and some other fruits, after about a week, it's going to be very difficult because there aren't alternative ways to transport them, particularly on short notice. But all the efforts that are going to be made to keep the logistics change running is going to put a pressure on that and raise prices for transportation. And that will no doubt be passed on to consumers. So this, if it lasts long, could feed into inflation. We don't have much of a record of strikes of the ILA and these ports, except that if we go back to the last strike almost 50 years ago, that one lasted 6 weeks. I'm not remotely saying this one is going to last 6 weeks because that would create a lot of cost and a lot of damage, uh, but that would take us through the election. And that means an angry, increasingly impacted electorate voting while this is taking place. So that is one of the wild cards that's here and really puts the pressure to gain a quick settlement. That is very possible. It has been said, certainly by the union, but by others as well, that the industry has earned a phenomenal amount of money in recent years. One figure that was indicated recently is that $400 billion were brought in by the port operators and shipping companies on the East Coast between 1920 and 1923. That is more money than was brought in since the introduction of containerization in 1957 through the year 2000. So there has been a lot of money earned. There will be costs associated with the strike that aren't directly recuperable. For example, it's one thing when you disrupt logistics, but in an industry of this complexity, it's very costly and time consuming to get things back to normal. So if you lose a day up front, it may take you 6 days to get the logistics chain functioning in the same way, maybe longer. So none of this is written in stone. There could be a settlement tomorrow because the power of a strike is it focuses the mind on both sides. For workers, they're giving up income, but they believe they're doing it and they're very motivated to do it right now because it will ensure their future. For the companies involved, they may be looking at giving a more generous settlement now or taking 2 more weeks of strike and giving an even more generous settlement uh, than they would have right now. So with that in mind, there is, after both sides get a sense of where they are, possibility over the next week, 10 days at the outset, that both sides could swallow hard. The Employers Association, the Maritime Alliance, upping what they're going to give on wages considerably from the 50%, and the union swallowing hard, perhaps, on not getting the full 77% they're demanding, and getting less in several other areas as well. That's the nature of collective bargaining. It does work, but the strike focuses the mind. You either pay now, you may not like it, or you'll pay more later, and you have the cost of the strike.